Chapter 1, Section 4 of The Greek View of Life by Goldsworthy Lowes Dickinson. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Martin Geeson. Chapter 1, Section 4. Greek Religion the Foundation of Society. But this relation to the world of nature is only one side of man's life. More prominent and more important at a later stage of his development is his relation to society. And here too in Greek civilization a great part was played by religion. For the Greek gods, we must remember, were not purely spiritual powers, to be known and approached only in the heart, by prayer. They were beings in human form, like, though superior, to ourselves, who passed a great part of their history on earth, intervened in the affairs of men, furthered or thwarted their undertakings, begat among them sons and daughters, and followed from generation to generation the fortunes of their children's children. Between them and mankind there was no impassable gulf. From Heracles, the son of Zeus, was descended the Dorian race, the Ionians from Ion, son of Apollo. Every family, every tribe traced back its origin to a hero, and these heroes were children of the gods, and deities themselves. Thus were the gods, in the most literal sense, the founders of society. From them was derived, even physically, the unit of the family and the race. And the whole social structure raised upon that natural basis was necessarily penetrated through and through by the spirit of religion. We must not therefore be misled by the fact that there was no church in the Greek state, to the idea that the state recognised no religion. On the contrary, religion was so essential to the state, so bound up with its whole structure, in general and in detail, that the very conception of a separation between the powers was impossible. If there was no separate church, in our sense of the term, as an independent organism within the state, it was because the state, in one of its aspects, was itself a church, and derived its sanction, both as a whole and in its parts, from the same gods who controlled the physical world. Not only the community as a whole, but all its separate minor organs were under the protection of patron deities. The family centred in the hearth, where the father, in his capacity of priest, offered sacrifice and prayer to the ancestors of the house. The various corporations into which families were grouped, the local divisions for the purpose of taxation, elections, and the like, derived a spiritual unity from the worship of a common God. And finally, the all-embracing totality of the state itself was explained and justified to all its members by the cult of the special protecting deity to whom its origin and prosperous continuance were due. The sailor who saw, on turning the point of Sunium, the tip of the spear of Athene glittering on the Acropolis, beheld in a type the spiritual form of the state. Athene and Athens were but two aspects of the same thing. and the statue of the goddess of wisdom dominating the city of the arts may serve to sum up for us the ideal of that marvellous corporate life, where there was no ecclesiastical religion only because there was no secular state. Regarded from this point of view, we may say that the religion of the Greeks was the spiritual side of their political life. And we must add that in one respect their religion pointed the way to a higher political achievement than they were ever able to realise in fact. One fatal defect of the Greek civilisation, as is familiar to students of their history, was the failure of the various independent city-states to coalesce into a single harmonious whole. But the tendency of religion was to obviate this defect. We find, for example, that at one time or another federations of states were formed to support in common the cult of some god. And one cult in particular there was, that of the Delphian Apollo, whose influence on political no less than on religious life was felt as far as, and even beyond, the limits of the Greek race. No colony could be founded, no war hazarded, no peace confirmed, without the advice and approval of the god, whose cult was thus at once a religious centre for the whole of Greece, and a forecast of a political unity that should coordinate into a whole her chaos of conflicting states. The religion of the Greeks being thus, as we have seen, the presupposition and bond of their political life, we find its sanction extended at every point to custom and law. The persons of heralds, for example, were held to be under divine protection. Treaties between states and contracts between individuals were confirmed by oath. The vengeance of the gods was invoked upon infringers of the law. National assemblies and military expeditions were inaugurated by public prayers. The whole of corporate life, in short, social and political, was so embraced and bathed in an idealising element of ritual that the secular and religious aspects of the state must have been as inseparable to a Greek in idea as we know them to have been in constitution. End of chapter 1, section 4. Recording by Martin Geeson in Haslemere, Surrey.